All right, guys, we are live. Welcome back to another episode of Everything Virtual. I'm here with Ronnie, and this time around with John. John, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Doing really good.
So
Yeah.
you are on the East Coast. I'm West Coast. Ronnie's in the Midwest. I know we talked briefly earlier about our quarantine and lockdown situations, but how's everything on the East Coast with you right now?
East Coast is good. Yeah, I'm down in Atlanta, so it's not too terrible here yet. Yeah, it's just kind of all bizarre. It's like it's not even like every day gets like something new happens or something worse happens. It's literally
Mhm.
like every few hours. So it's yeah, it's just been kind of interesting, as is like with anywhere right now, I guess. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's not too bad. My wife and I are both working from home, so got plenty of time to do some VR and hang, and yeah,
There you go.
it's not bad.
How about you, Ronnie? How are things in the Midwest?
Yeah, same. I mean, yeah, I've been experiencing the same stuff that John has, just every few hours, and kind of not knowing just the uncertainty of everything. I think not knowing
Yeah.
exactly what's coming down the corner is kind of scary. But yeah, we're all good and healthy, and uh, now I'm with family and everything, so that's really nice. And
Mhm.
brought all my VR with me, so all of I have lots of stuff to do between work and
Yeah,
this stuff, and I have a lot to do, but it's crazy to me. I think the weirdest thing about it all is when you get on these kind of calls, or when you get uh, on different live streams, or and just realize that literally everybody is dealing with the same thing all at once
Yeah.
everywhere, is something that I don't think I've ever quite experienced before. I mean, I, the fact that what's going on at my work is going on at your work, that's going on with everyone, and all these public buildings are empty, and all it's just like nuts.
Mhm.
It's
weird.
Yeah.
kind of it's really surreal. So
No, it's definitely some unprecedented times right now. I mean, John and I were just talking earlier about how there's no like, yeah, we don't know when the last time like something like this was happening to people, and I just feel like nobody, or not, I shouldn't say nobody, but I feel like a lot of people just aren't grasping how big this is going to be. This is going to be all over like tech
Yeah,
books in the next like 10, 20 years. You know what I mean? About how the entire world just completely shut down.
now, so
But
some of the interesting stuff I was reading, and I granted these are all just like predictions, and no one really knows what's going to happen. But
mhm,
I guess one of the interesting things that has kind of happened in the last couple of weeks that might have repercussions is just how much change was possible in such a short amount of time. Things that policies being changed and laws being enacted, and all of these things so
mhm.
quickly on a moment's notice, that were things that just a couple of weeks ago seemed like they would be impossible to implement. Kind of puts things in a new perspective, where if you think that a policy should be changed, or that something more could be done about something, maybe going forward people won't be so quick to say that it's not possible to make huge changes in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean that's always the hope coming out of something like this, right? I mean, even so, yeah, it's across all sectors. But like the one thing that hit me was, all these companies who say you're not allowed to work from home or whatever, but they're kind of forced to do it now. I wonder how much telecommuting will become even more prevalent.
Yeah,
yeah,
Just because I felt like a lot of companies, a lot of forward-thinking companies, were really starting to head in that direction, and
yeah,
a lot of companies that were dragging their feet on it started to, or well, kind of have to have or implement something at this point. So, I just wonder how much of an impact that will make in the next, over the next 5 years as we. I'm not trying to make a prediction of how long this will take, but
right.
as we
Ooh,
kind of
5 years.
hopefully roll out of this, what companies will be like, oh, actually, we don't need to pay for like 10,000 square feet of office space. Why don't we have like people work from home? And you know what I mean? Like, just I wonder the type of business changes that will be happening
yeah.
across the
I
world.
mean, obviously it's short term, but yeah, another thing that I had read that's kind of interesting is, yeah, the idea that it prior to this moment in time, people would usually say what. Usually, the discussion would be around, can we do like we should do it some we should do things in person unless there's a reason to do it
Yeah, yeah.
online. And now, at least temporarily, it's going to be the reverse. It's going to be, why do I really need to go to in
Yeah.
person and meet with someone?
Do I
Like,
Mm.
really
there's
want to
people,
breathe the same air as this
yeah,
other person? Ugh.
The default will be, yeah, of course we would do it online. Wait, you're suggesting we need to do this in person? Give me the reason why.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be a shift in mindset. Now, I just, I just don't know how long it'll last in terms of, well, so for me, like, I'm just thinking about the fact that like now every time I hear somebody cough, I'm just like, oh, like it's like knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I need to like stay away or go home or like sanitize myself. And I wonder what when the next time will be where like somebody in the room coughs and I don't immediately think like, oh my God, is the world ending?
Right.
Well, and that's the other thing about online communication now, as opposed to in person.
Mhm.
In person, you have to worry about those things, and so you're a little bit more on edge. Whereas online, like you could be coughing up a storm right now,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't faze me. And like that was just some of these things that I was reading about. Like people are going to become probably, at least in the short term, much more comfortable with people online
Mhm.
than in person, which is the opposite of how things are traditionally. Usually being in person lets you kind of feel like you're more connected with someone, and slowly that might shift because of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is the perfect segue into what this podcast is actually about in terms of virtual reality, because I mean, one of the things that we've been going back and forth on with text messages and things like that as this whole thing has kind of played out is, what is VR's role in all this? And how will this fundamentally change the industry? How will this fundamentally change our daily interactions? The fact that this technology is here, it's not yet, I'm sure it's not yet mainstream in a sense, but it's definitely available to the mainstream. So now that we are here with potential lockdown and quarantine being talked about for not weeks but months, like what are your thoughts? And I feel like there's so many different ways we can dig into this, but I feel like just in the conversations we've been having separately and then together on our group text messages, like I feel like there's a lot of different ideas about how, society will move forward and how VR will play a role. So based on what you guys have read, based on what you're, what are some of the big takeaways you think that might happen from VR?
John?
Man,
and don't worry, John, there's no right or wrong answers.
No, I know there's not. But it is interesting. I was on the phone with a buddy this morning, or actually on Skype, and we were talking about this very thing. And it seems like although VR has been around for the past, like little bit, like the past few years, like a little more widely adopted, and then really just this past year with Quest is like the first, headset that really like allows like just total adoption from the masses, without having to be hardwired into a PC and that sort of thing. So we're really on the front line of like where that's at right now. And to me, like we were talking about like the first iPhone, and I was like, with smartphones, it took people like a little bit to get on like the smartphone game. And then obviously now you've got like Android and iPhone, even more specifically, like, Samsung and Apple, like those are like the two kind of like big players or whatever. But it took a while for everyone to get there. But we're at a stage now where like, dude, if this happened, before smartphones, like everyone would be like, what am I going to do with my time? Like literally you'd be, just like texting on like your old like little Razor phone or Juke phone or whatever. Like I don't know, but so now we're at a stage where VR is a reality, and like it's not widely adopted for the most part. So people aren't necessarily seeing the value outside of folks like us who obviously kind of like are into it for gaming, but also for I'll be quite honest, like I'm not super into gaming. I adopted VR mostly for like social interactions. I was very, very intrigued by that aspect of things, and like Facebook Horizons has me super intrigued, especially if like I've been wondering if Facebook is really going to try and like steamroll that out now, since we are in this sort of.
Not be surprised.
Yeah, me either, especially since like movies and stuff are all going like straight to VOD right now, and I don't know. It's like with everything that happened in Oculus Connect last year, them showing like, VR and AR like working together to be so you could literally be in like a space, not just a virtual space, but a space that you're familiar with friends, family, or coworkers, for like a more practical use, I guess. It will be very, very interesting. I wouldn't be surprised that now the caveat, I guess, to people, buying like a Quest or something right now is everyone's out of work. So no one's really going to be like, no one's really going to be wanting to drop $400 on a headset right now necessarily. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It really is like it's interesting. It's for me, like I've been for the past 2 or 3 days trying to hop in VR, being like, oh man, I need to it's been a minute since I've even hopped in, so I need to get into it. So yeah, I don't know. Give me your thoughts, I guess, Ronnie, on what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, 2 quick things pop to mind. Like one, like similar to what you mentioned with Facebook Horizons. I think if you're a developer working on a social VR application, or even gaming for that matter, I think the reasons behind what you were working on before have now shifted tremendously in a way that I think can really motivate people out there that the work they're doing in VR is going to be super, super important for now and in the future. I mean, Facebook Horizons last year was kind of a, alternative to meeting up with people from distances, but it seemed like something that, oh yeah, if you want to, be around people that for some reason you're not able to, travel to right now, this is like, a more convenient way to do it. And given what's going on with, all this stuff now, it's almost a necessity. It's now we need to work on this because people can't interact with each other anymore in person.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of a momentous shift in terms of going from something that's just kind of a convenience option to something that's potentially going to be necessary in order to actually interact with people. So that's kind of one thing. And like I said, if I was working on any of those projects at Facebook where you saw like, short-term horizon, long-term, some of the demos that they were showing where they were capturing facial expressions and and bodies for in-game avatars and that sort of thing, like all of a sudden the work you're doing on that could be super transformative to society as a whole. Because if we get to the point where we can project ourselves pretty accurately in VR spaces, you can rapidly see, like, I know things are still expensive, but at the end of the day, it might become something worth paying for if you can't leave your home. So that's kind of crazy to me. And then the other thing, I guess, more for the time being, I mean, obviously right now, most of what we use VR for is gaming and all that kind of stuff. There are really, useful social apps as well. But one thing that, like, as someone that was an early adopter of this technology and saw what it used to be like to bring people to the fold versus what it might be like in the future. I mean, for me, the prevalent way of getting people to try VR and get into it before was having parties or people would come over and you'd pass around the headset from person to person and everyone would get to try it and have so much fun. And the VR headset was almost like this social device where everybody could enjoy it in settings. I feel like I think that's going to change dramatically to where a person's virtual reality headset is going to be a very personal item that's going to be just for you kind of thing. And if you're into VR, it's not going to be something that you really readily share with others or that other people would even want to share with you. And so I think that that's also going to transform, I guess, how people get exposed to VR. In the short term, it's going to be difficult to expose people, but I think once if Facebook and Valve and other people out there are going to, Apple potentially, Microsoft, who knows who gets more into this space, because really so many things are going to be up in the air in terms of what companies are going to now be focusing on. But I could see, I just think pushing VR to the masses is going to be a little bit different messaging now. It's going to be more about, do you want to be able to kind of escape your current reality a little bit more, and hey, this is the way to do it. Whereas before, you'd see these more social kind of, marketing type pushes for VR. I think it's going to be more about letting people, get a chance to leave their current situation. So I don't know. And it echoes some of what you'd hear from Zuckerberg and others when they would talk about, they saw the potential. Like, I think John Carmack had mentioned this multiple times about the idea that that VR VR is more important for the less privileged than it was for the super privileged. So like a lot of that messaging was kind of like, well, and if you're pretty privileged, you have access to large open spaces. You get to do all of these really cool things in real life. You might not see all of the value that VR can actually bring. Part of the value of VR is it allows people to experience, big spaces and new environments and travel and all of these things for people that were limited to very small spaces and limited by their circumstances. They weren't able to get out in the world. And so VR, like when they were developing some of this stuff, some of those ideas were in the back of their mind that they were actually going to be giving people experiences that maybe some people are fortunate enough to have, but not everyone is. And I guess that now, given the new reality, that there might be a lot more people now in that category to benefit from what VR can bring. So
yeah,
I don't know.
No, I mean those are like definitely valid points. I mean I think it's tough because obviously like as a show we are very much VR optimists. So I think that there's this idea that like, okay, adoption should be a little bit more widespread now. People are kind of stuck at home. People are looking for things to do and ways to connect. But I do wonder if VR is still somewhat in a bit of a silo, right? Like all of us as early adopters love it and we can speak volumes to it, right? But it's one of those things where yeah, to add to the point what John said earlier, like how, who has $400 right now to spend on something if if you're out of work, if you're uncertain about where your next meal is coming from or when your job will be back. So like all those things 100% kind of give me the sense that there is a lot of potential on the development side to see, okay, what are the things that could really enhance life in a way that uh, not that they weren't doing that before, but right now, just with the confines of how everyone's situation is, we're kind of being forced to look at that and reevaluate and almost like really spearhead that type of development, right? But for the rest of the population, I don't know that getting an Oculus Quest is, at the top of their bucket list. But for someone like me who has one and who loves it, like I'm starting to think like I feel like the way that it would spread is someone like me being like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna tell my parents to get one. I'm gonna tell my brother to get one because we're all in different cities and it'd be cool to do like a virtual hang, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
as frustrating as it would be to talk your parents through setting up a VR headset. It's one of those things where it's like we will continue to be those conduits of like spreading the message and bring the I don't know what the word is the Paul Revere is like, like, hey, VR is coming type of thing and like try it out. Even though we can't have these social parties, we're gonna have to find ways to do it differently. Not we have to, but like I think we're gonna want to find ways to do it a little bit differently than it's been done before. Right. So I don't know that I'm even there yet in terms of like wanting to get my parents in on one, but it's like one of those things where now that I know people who have them, or if I do know people who have them, it's going to be like, hey, like let's do a VR hangout because we don't know when the next time we'll actually see each other. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
we'll see because I think that there will be, there's definitely a portion of the population that is, trying to figure out where their, what their financial situation will be like. And then you have like what you're talking about earlier, like the privileged of the population who right now they're probably saving money because they can't go out and spend, $400 on a fancy dinner. So it's like, oh, well, if we're going to be stuck at home, let's just get a VR headset. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I'm just talking about hypotheticals. This is not me. This is not anyone, but it's one of those things where it's like, you're going to have people all across the spectrum. And I think for a lot of people who are bored at home, who have the means to do it, like they might be the ones to take the plunge right now because it's like, oh, VR is that shiny new thing that I wanted to get into, but I didn't have the time and I didn't have the reason, and now I have both.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that I wanted to kind of like, I wonder what the impact is going to be on VR development, just in terms of, people already kind of struggling before trying to make money on VR titles, if they're going to be able to continue to do this kind of work. with the current situation, if it's going to stop people from focusing on VR and have to get into other fields just to kind of make ends meet, or on the other hand, maybe they won't be as impacted. Maybe, you know, the people that were buying VR content before are going to be buying even more VR content now because of the situation, and maybe it'll help them. Like it, I don't really know, but these are just things that are like, I'm not going to lie. I mean, definitely, you know, some thoughts in my head came, you know, were running past my brain about, you know, what if this kills VR? What if, you know, in this incubation period, something like this triggers, you know, just the collapse of what everybody was trying to accomplish. I mean, on the other hand, Facebook has kind of been propping up a lot of what's been happening in VR anyways. Maybe this will only further motivate them to continue to pour money into this because they see a value in VR going forward. I don't know, but these are, not going to lie, these are all, I mean, at this point, VR isn't the only, I mean, there's so many repercussions to an event like this that are that were unforeseeable and continue to be uncertain. So, I mean, VR was a fledgling industry, you know, several months ago, but there are very mature industries that are probably now facing potential collapse. So,
yeah, that's true. I still. Yeah, and again, like Zain said, we're optimists. So when it comes to VR, so I don't know. I guess my hope is like I've never put someone in the Oculus and they've been like, oh, that sucked. Like every time, literally every single time, and it's one of my favorite things to experience is watching someone get to do it for the first time.
Yeah,
I'll never forget the first time I threw it on at a Microsoft store. I was like, what even? I was like, I had no idea. You have no idea. So, and I remember like one moment, like for me specifically, was like throwing my dad inside and watching him do like the intro to Vader Immortal episode 1, and he's in the ship, and then the Star Destroyer comes over him, and he was just like blown, like mind blown, because he's been a Star Wars fan since the first one came out, and like he's just like he's in the world, so he's like, this is insane. I would hope that, like, I don't know. I've even told my friends like who have come over and gotten to try it. I've been like, hey, I know everyone might be like a little tight on cash right now, but if y'all can figure it out, get a Quest so that we can hang virtually, because it is better than doing like a Skype call or whatever.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's so cool. And like, not to negate the fact that like even what we're doing right now to compensate just being in different states, because that's kind of like, that's just the reality of our situation as a podcast. But like, it's just, there's just something to it. So I hope that we're able to kind of, people will see the value in that. And every time I tell someone like about that whole segment at Oculus Connect, last year when they were talking about like the very like lifelike avatars and like full body tracking, all that sort of thing. Anytime I show someone even just that little snippet, they're like, that's insane. And I'm like, yeah, and that's not like concept pieces. Like that's alpha right now. It's just not like out yet, but like,
yeah, it's possible.
It's coming. Yeah.
So I think, I don't know. And it's, like we're saying, everyone is locked up, and, I think the kind of the VR is like often seen, or has the potential to often be seen as like this dystopian sort of reality for like people think like Ready Player One, right? And like the stacks and like extreme poverty, etc. But like this is an entirely different situation. This was a situation that was out of our control. It's not like VR did this to us. It's literally like, this is our situation. So can we use a tool that we have to make our situation maybe even just a little bit better, just to like keep morale up? Because for a guy like me, so my wife is completely fine being at home, like just the two of us, like working
homebody, yeah.
She's fine that way. I am it's like day 3 and I'm already like,
you get a little cabin fever over there.
Not even cabin fever. I'm just like, man, I miss seeing my friends. Like I like going out and like doing things and that sort of thing. So I'm just, my wife and I don't have kids yet, so we're we are very much a unit and we do things together. So being stuck at home with her is obviously, to me, it's a blessing, like having all that extra time that we would have, be at work and stuff. That's fantastic. But there is the other side of it that's like, man, I like seeing my buddies too, and like my friends, like wives or her friends. So like being able to do those like group hangouts like we normally would, like not being able to do that because like I have a buddy's mom who just finished her radiation for cancer and stuff. So
yep,
like it's like, I think it's, what is the rule still, like 5 or less? Like at least I think on like a national whatever, like that's the recommendation or whatever. So, but we can't even do that with them because like we don't want to even give like a chance for him to pass it on to his mom, perhaps. So it's like you guys said, everyone's situation is different, but I do see the benefits of being able to be like, all right, everyone just slap the headset on and let's go play Rec Room or like just hang out and like, the like Oculus Home or like the Steam, Home VR or whatever, and just, doodle around and, whatever, like just hang out.
No, it makes to your point, and then I'm sorry, I have two things. One for your point and one for Ronnie's point. Like it's funny because you mentioned that like in most science fiction like lore, VR is this kind of dystopian future, right? And it's really interesting if this ends up kind of shaking that narrative like completely and being like, what if VR is the savior of human connection, right? what if it's viewed as like, oh my gosh, if we didn't have VR, the world would actually be over. You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of funny. Like if it does end up playing that role in the next 18 to 24 months or however long this kind of thing goes through. And then kind of speaking more broadly to your point, Ronnie, about like, I totally get it. The fact that like, I think the fear that entire industries could collapse is definitely there because a pandemic like this is so unprecedented in how it's really affected worldwide, the worldwide economy. But I think about the fact, and again, it's funny because as this was a Vive podcast before, I'm sure there was a lot, there's a lot of people who can clip us talking negatively about Facebook and how they were pouring money into things, but it's like now it's like Facebook is potentially this savior of VR in a sense, because I don't think Facebook is going anywhere. If anything, Facebook has a lot to gain from this.
That's what I was going to say. As far as like public imaging is concerned, so Facebook prior to this event wasn't looking great. Facebook after this, huge potential to really like become, not only just a force for social good. If all of a sudden finding better and better ways for people to connect using the internet.
But see, that's also in Facebook's thing, right? Like the underbelly of Facebook is data protection and privacy, all right, which they have failed at. But what Facebook has always said they were about was connecting people, right?
Yeah.
And so, this is a time when people are feeling very disconnected. So this is a time for them to really step up and kind of fill that void in multiple avenues, right? Like, for example, last night I just did a 14-person chat with my entire extended family on my mom's side of the family, all throughout the world, right? And we did that on Facebook Messenger. Or however many people it was, but like I've been doing that. I've been doing WhatsApp chats or video chats with big groups of people. So like they're already filling that void. VR is still the future. You know what I mean? Like it's even if the industry technically collapses, it's still coming, right? Like nobody's gonna be like, you know what? We changed our mind. We don't want it anymore.
It's a technology. Like those people,
it's technology.
Like, what they're working on is so compelling and so important that. It'll get done at some point.
Yeah. So I feel like with Facebook being kind of at the helm of one of the biggest or most popular headsets at this point, I don't know. I just feel like it's not going to go anywhere. If anything, it could stall for a certain amount of time. But I would say that its stalling would be very much in line with how much the rest of the world stalls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all these other industries. So like it wouldn't be anything that would be VR specific. It would just be okay. Kind of the world took a step back during this time period. So that would be it. But I don't know.
If you're developing VR, like I said, I can't imagine if you were starting to get a motivational lapse
Mhm.
I feel like something like this is only going to, like, if you were an evangelist before, I feel
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
people like us have been out there for years, kind of saying, "No, trust me, VR is really important. It's going to be huge." Like, I think those people are going to really double down.
We're gonna be
If
those people
they're,
who are like, "We told you so."
yeah,
Oh,
if,
Could've
if
gotten a headset.
I
like if
already am.
they're,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's that. Like, I feel like it's not gonna, like, it might be harder to get new people into VR in the short term, but I feel like an event like this will bring the enthusiasts fervor back
Yeah.
even
My
stronger.
my fear though, sorry, just to wrap up one last point from what you were saying earlier. My one fear though is that this could potentially decimate the independent developer community. Because like you were talking about, if they need to go back to jobs or if they like the money's just not there right now, this could be tough, right? And in that way, we may be getting only titles from a Valve or from Facebook's, or Oculus's
No,
store, which
yeah,
would
so
again, and
yeah,
not the worst thing in the world, but I think
yeah,
what especially for us on this podcast have discovered is the value that the independent community really brings, the independent development community,
yeah.
just because there's like such outside of the box ideas, there's no restrictions, and people can really try whatever they want. So I hope that essence isn't lost, and I mean I hope that whole side of the industry isn't lost, but in a sense I hope that creativity still remains.
My only playing devil's advocate to, because I was the one that brought it up. Like, I definitely
Mhm.
think it could be a factor, but playing devil's advocate, one could argue that indie developers weren't really making a ton of money already.
True, yeah.
that's
So,
true.
so I'm just saying, like, a lot of these are passion projects that people are doing in their spare time, and a lot of people have side jobs, or so I know things are going to be more challenging, and people are going to have to buckle down. But at the same time, um, if people care about things, they're still going to be working on passion projects, and
True, yeah.
like
And they
I
might have
would
more
say
time
that,
now too.
yeah,
That's what I was
I'd say
gonna
that
say.
we're in a community, like VR is, as a community, is a very giving community. I'd say, like, as far as these indie developers and a lot of the people I've been able to meet and speak with, I mean, they're just awesome people that are really, you
Mhm.
know, for the amount of hours they're putting into these projects to give out to people, they're really getting very little back in return. Like,
Mhm.
so, so I just want to put out there that, um, you know, hopefully that stuff will continue to exist, at least in small pockets, because I, yeah, because I think that stuff has been. I think I just don't want
Mhm.
to downplay the what how I'm trying to phrase it correctly. I don't want to downplay their sacrifice, like the indie development community's sacrifices that have already been
Been made.
ongoing
Yeah,
for
that's true.
several years now. So
No, that's very true. Yeah, definitely good point to bring up.
Yeah.
so
All right, well, enough with the doom and gloom. We're all just speculating here
Oh,
anyway. Let's kind of shift gears to, well, before we shift gears to Half-Life Alyx, which I know we're excited to talk about. I think that there was something that Ronnie you had brought up earlier about sanitizing your VR
yeah.
equipment.
yeah,
I think is really important to mention.
yeah,
So I don't know if you want to go through that. I do have the
sure.
the upload VR article kind of pulled up here, but if you want to speak to it in broad terms, and I can kind of fill in the gaps, we can do that.
Sure. So just broadly speaking, I mean, I saw on Twitter earlier that Upload VR had reached out to Oculus just to see if they could comment on what their official stance would be as far as, what you need to do to clean a Quest or a Rift S and other headsets, given sanitation concerns and all that sort of thing. And so Oculus came back with a list of these are steps that we believe you should take in order to sanitize a headset. For me, I mean, you can go over the specific steps after
Mhm.
I mention this, but for me, I mean, my takeaway was it's very involved. Obviously, they want to make sure that you're doing a good job of cleaning the headset before you let people use it. I mean, I'm gonna probably err on the side of not, passing my headset around to people.
Mhm.
But something that was important to know from what Oculus said that I didn't know previously was that they say stay away from wiping your headsets with anything alcohol based.
Yeah.
They were very specific about that, and they go into details in the instructions to say that alcohol based solutions of any kind can actually damage the lenses. So even if you were previously wiping down the lenses to clean them, that you don't want to use any kind of spray or like wipe that has alcohol in it, because that could potentially ruin the lenses. So I just thought, people are probably already concerned about making sure that their headsets are clean, and possibly a lot of people out there that aren't going to read Oculus's specific instructions might already be assuming that they should clean off their headsets, and they might be using Lysol and other types of sprays without even thinking about, could this potentially ruin the device.
There's definitely an obsession with hand sanitizer, rubbing alcohol, and spray.
Yeah,
so at this point, like it's good that people know that this could potentially do damage, and that there are alternative ways to clean it.
So I mean, if you want to read through some of the instructions,
the basic thing was, and a lot of this is somewhat common sense too, but like, wash your hands prior to using the headset and controllers. Use gloves while cleaning your headset. Dispose of the gloves afterwards. Between cleanings, wash your hands. Here was the main part, though. Clean your devices, the headset controllers, and all other elements that might be touched with non-alcohol, non-abrasive, antibacterial wipes. And when you're using these products, wet the surface until it's visibly wet, and it should remain wet for about 10 minutes. You can dry it with a microfiber cloth or let it air dry afterwards. But those are the specific kind of guidelines that were given from Oculus and through Upload VR.
Yeah. So no, it's good to know. And I mean, the wait 10 minutes thing, I think those are instructions on a lot of different types of products, because I think what people don't always realize is, just because you put something that's antibacterial on something, you kind of have to let it sit there to kill the bacteria before you wipe it. So let it do its thing. But no. And the non-abrasive, I feel like that's common sense too, because you don't want to scratch the lenses. But I just would have never thought of the alcohol actually doing damage to like the coating on the lenses or anything like that. So I'm hoping that I haven't used any of those kind of products. Like, I was trying to think back to, how do I usually clean my lenses and all that sort of thing. But yeah, good to know. So
Yep. All right. Well, let's wrap this one up talking about probably the biggest thing in VR news happening right now, but HalfLife Alyx, it's out tomorrow. No delays, nothing. I think it's 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You will be able to start playing it, is what I just read. So,
oh man, 10 a.m. I'm going to be working tomorrow, so I probably won't. I mean, obviously, I have my lunch break that I can take, and then
I already have my gripes with the fact that they released it on a Monday. This should have been on a Friday.
That would have been nice. I mean, Damon had joked with us in text messages like previously, but I was almost like crossing my fingers, like, come on, like, release it a couple days early, given the circumstances. Like, everybody's off, just let them.
Everybody's off. Everybody's home.
And Damon said something like, "Yeah, it would be the first time in the history of the company that Valve released something early." I was like, "All right, you're right. I'll be happy that I get it on Monday."
It's unprecedented times right now, so you never know, right? Maybe they'll do a little bit earlier than 10 a.m. tomorrow. But
dude, one could argue this stuff was like a foreseen consequence to try to No, I'm joking, but foreseen to prevent like a new Half-Life from coming out, nature is doing what it can to see if they can stop Valve at all costs from releasing a new Half-Life game.
That's good.
Well, so Ronnie, I know you're excited. We've probably talked previously on other episodes about Half-Life, your experience with Half-Life, and the upcoming Half-Life Alyx that you're excited about. John, are you big into Half-Life? Are you planning to get the game?
So, all right. So here's my thing with Half-Life. I when like the initial games were coming out, I did have friends that would play them, but I was much younger. I'm 24, so when those were coming out, like, I was more into like, I don't know, like the GameCube and like Lego Star Wars and Spider-Man and games like that on GameCube versus like something like Half-Life. However, I watched the trailer yesterday because I know you guys specifically have really been hyping it up and like are really excited about it, and Damon more so than anyone else, I think. But like, it's like seeing that makes me think, okay, well, I need to at least look into this. And just looking at it yesterday and on Steam and just watching through some of the trailers and stuff, I was like, whoa, this really does look crazy good. However, the thing that I'm running into right now is like, I saw a couple games yesterday that were, on sale for like a really good price. And I was like, oh, I'll go ahead and grab those. So I grabbed those. And then I was looking at Half-Life and I was like, man, it's still like $55. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to drop that right now. And I know if you've got an index, you like get the game, right?
Yeah.
I'm not in that boat either, unfortunately. So yeah, I will get it. It'll probably be once there's a sale eventually. Like it'll probably be a little down the road for me. But I'm very interested to hear, kind of what the general consensus is and stuff. And it's a complete new installment, right? It's not like a is it a continuation or how is that?
I mean, I think story-wise, it kind of continues off from, but it is its own separate thing. Like it's technically a prequel because it takes place, I think, between Half-Life 1 and 2.
Okay.
But it fills in some blanks and potentially, I feel like they've hinted that maybe at some points there may be some things in there that will connect in some way to the future of Half-Life. So that's but I mean, Valve is really tricky when it comes to this stuff. Like they're very good storytellers, at least in past Half-Life games. So like, I wonder if there's any time related elements, like maybe part of it is in the past and maybe at some point, somehow things move to the future. Like, I really don't know. I have no idea, but there have been hints that this could, lead to some next steps in the franchise. But yeah, I mean, you're going to have plenty of time to also see people's reactions to it. And so, yeah, I think for people on the like I'm for VR games, obviously, like there aren't that many $60 games. So I usually don't have to worry about that. But getting used to pricing in VR makes me more hesitant to purchase like non-VR titles that are $60 because you look at those prices and when you start getting used to the smaller, you're like, man, $60 is a lot. But there's a lot of game here. I've been told it's like 20. It's like around 20 hours, probably 15 to 20, probably.
Absolutely,
like I'm legit. Yeah, so I think it's going to be one of those things. Yeah, wait to see how people react to it. Like, I definitely don't. There's for anyone interested. There was a recent video that was put out by IGN where they interviewed Gabe Newell and another developer, like one of the guys from the HalfLife Alyx team. About the game leading up to its release. Like this is just a few days ago. And they talk about the game quite a bit and they kind of talk about, their motivation for it and a lot of that. And I mean, they sound like they're super excited about it. Like they have no financial reason to really have to release games.
Yeah.
Like they're more excited about seeing what people say about the game almost than they are about the money that is going to come in from the like they kind of could care less. Like from their point of view, it sounds like they're not that concerned about the making profits from the game. Like they that's not why they're releasing it, because they make so much money from Steam and so much money from other sources of revenue.
Yeah.
That for them, when they release a game like this, they're more concerned about are we right about our bets on VR? Are we right about are we right that we're doing something here that is special and new and people are gonna
be part of?
People are gonna go crazy. So I think more so for them than like just numbers of people that are going to be buying the game. That's why they gave it out to so many people that already had. Like they could have easily just made everyone buy it, and I don't think. If they wouldn't have set that precedent by giving it away to people that had the index, like they hadn't promised anybody that, hey, when you buy the index, you're also going to get Half-Life like originally.
Right.
So that just goes to show you, like for them, it's not going to be about at the end of the day, this was a success because we made X dollars or Y dollars. It's going to be, what did reviewers say? What did fans say? What was the feedback we got from this? And whether it's good or bad, like that's what they're concerned at. Like if it's bad, they're going to make changes to what they were focusing on. If it's really good, they're going to double down on some of that stuff. And they're really going to, like, I think for them, they're just really, really excited to get this into the world. And they're hoping that people are going to love it. So I think, so that's really exciting to, so the reason I'm bringing that up is because I think like for people out that are big VR supporters, I feel like if you're not sure or if $60 is a lot right now, just wait and see.
Yeah.
and get it at a later date if you need to. If you don't have $60 to spend right now, wait a month, wait 2 months, like just whenever because I think obviously there's people out there that they're not going to want to wait 2 hours. They're going to get it immediately. But then there's people so I'd say if you're in that camp that, man, like, I don't know if I can, afford this right now, given the financial situation that we're in and all of that stuff, I'd say don't feel pressured to support a game like this just because, I'm a big VR enthusiast and I have to buy every purchase.
Yeah.
Like, do it when it makes sense for you. And Valve will be just fine. And
for sure. Yeah.
And hopefully everybody, hopefully the game comes out and it's going to be amazing. And, we'll get to play it when we get to play it. So
we'll try to do, I still need to get the game myself, but we'll try to do a review on here. And obviously, John, you can ask Ronnie about his experiences because he and Damon will be on that at 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Yeah. Like I said, I had the option, like, granted, who knows when all these quarantine things are going to end, but when I traveled, part of the allure of the Quest and getting Oculus Link was, oh man, won't it be great that if I'm in a bind and I need to travel, I could just bring my computer and the Quest and not have to set up base stations and all that kind of thing. And given that Half-Life is coming out tomorrow, I was like, man, all right, I'm going to take down these base stations. I'm packing it up with me. I have to play this on the Index. And so, yeah, sure enough, I have base stations in our bedroom here. And because who knows when I'm going to be, but I'm ready. So I have my whole Valve Index, outside, like, because I'm bunkering down outside of our home where I'm with in-laws. So that's kind of where I'm going to be for the foreseeable future. But there's a lot more room here and we're able to space out. So we're good here. But
Ronnie, you've been waiting decades for this. So
yeah, no, I'm excited. So I can't, like I said, watching and another, like, for people out there that haven't watched that IGN video with Gabe Newell, like, it's definitely worth watching because he talks about, what they've been excited about leading up to the release and all of that. Something really cool that he mentioned that I just thought it would be worth sharing. I mean, a lot of what he, like, I guess, side projects that he's worked on at Valve, in addition to this VR specific stuff, is just like neural computer link, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. They're working on that stuff. And something he just mentioned is, he said, we're a lot closer to realizing the Matrix than I think people realize. And he was just, and just some of the things that they've learned in their research, for example, they're obviously in early stages, just experimenting with all kinds of stuff. But for example, he said, you'd be surprised, it's a lot easier to interface with the brain when it comes to visual and audio introductions, like images, like directly putting images and audio into the brain. Like, this is what he was saying. He said it's a lot easier to do that than it is to try to tell someone that their body is cold or hot. And he said these are things that they're learning. It's like things that you would think are complicated interacting with the brain, are some things are not, and other things that you would think are simple are complicated because more is going on with your body to tell your brain that you're cold than necessarily what the inputs that your eyes would be sending to show you imaging and all this stuff. Like, so literally these are the kind of things that they're experiencing. So I was like, whoa, that's pretty intense.
That's like that episode of Black Mirror that came out like in this last little, like, they were only like 3 or 4 maybe, but like they just put the little thing on the side of their temple, and instead of it, being a headset or whatever, it's literally just like this little thing, and then they just kind of like slump back in their chair and they're totally in a different game. Or like a world, not even just a game, but it's literally like just fully realized, no screen, nothing. It's all happening there, which is, that's bizarre. That's bizarre.
So anyway, so that's some of what Valve is apparently working on. So I think I think they'll be busy in the quarantine.
I'm sure they will. Well, if anyone at Valve hears this, you could hook your boy up with an Index. That would be killer. Me and Zain both.
I'll take one.
No kidding.
All right, guys.
Buy one.
All right. Well, this was fun. Let's plan to recap again soon, guys. Stay safe for everyone listening out there. Make sure you're practicing good, proper VR hygiene basics.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I think we'll be doing hopefully more episodes here, and we'll be talking about Half-Life Alyx soon, since we're all kind of locked down and hopefully going to be in VR more than usual. So until next time, guys, stay safe, and we will catch you all very, very soon.